Great, thank you. So I will start. So
You can
greetings,
start anytime
judges.
you're ready.
Okay, so greetings, judges. We are going to present our container recycling strategy to address the issue of empty container congestion in Africa. Now let's take a closer look at the challenges in Africa. Firstly, there is a significant trade imbalance. Africa imports much more containerized goods than it exports, resulting in a surplus of empty containers. It is discovered that 56% of a container's time is spent idle or undergoing empty repositioning. This buildup of empty containers has an adverse economic impact as empty container repositioning increases cost and reduces operational efficiency. In addition, the process of moving and storing empty containers produces greenhouse gas emissions and pollution, which harm air quality. This situation worsens environmental conditions in and around African ports, impacting communities and ecosystems. Finally, these issues are all magnified by infrastructure gaps. Many African ports lack well-developed infrastructure. Together, these factors highlight the need for strategic solutions to optimize container logistics in Africa. As you can see, our strategy consists of 5 main points, which I will further explain in the following slides. This flowchart shows the process of converting end-of-life standard containers into foldable units and deploying them along the One Belt One Road trade route, creating a more efficient and sustainable supply chain. The process begins when containers arrive at ports, which will be empty after being unloaded. At the same time, there will also be idle and matured containers docking at the ports. These empty and matured containers will be collected and consolidated before being transported to a recycling facility in Morocco called intercontinental containers. Here, they undergo a transformation process where end-of-life standard containers are recycled into foldable containers. After conversion, the foldable containers are strategically deployed along the One Belt One Road route. This deployment leverages AI technology to optimize the placement and movement of containers, ensuring they meet demand while minimizing unnecessary repositioning expenses. So in summary, the process not only helps reduce container waste and port congestion, but also enhances operational efficiency across global trade routes by turning end-of-life containers into valuable assets for sustainable logistics. So now you might be wondering, why Morocco? Well, the port of Tangermet in Morocco has the highest container volume measured in TEUs across Africa, with approximately 8.6 TEUs handled every year, ranking 23rd among the top 500 ports in the world. As a country with connections to 180 ports across 70 nations, Morocco offers many intersections for major maritime routes. So, considering the logistics hub for international trade, Morocco emerges as an efficient location to distribute and promote foldable containers across continents. Moreover, Morocco's intercontinental containers focuses on reusing end-of-life standard containers as their source of materials, which makes them a suitable company for our solution.
As mentioned, we plan to integrate with the overall trade route. By integrating African trade routes into this expansive network, we have the opportunity to streamline container management and reduce logistic costs associated with repositioning empty containers. This integration is expected to enhance efficiency and economic growth across the continent. There are four benefits which AI and IoT can offer to optimize the container flow along the overall trade route. Firstly, with data-driven demand forecasting, AI can be used to analyze historical data, seasonal trends, and economic indicators to accurately predict where and when containers are needed. By anticipating demand shift, we can deploy containers more efficiently to high-demand locations, optimizing resource use and reducing empty containers. Secondly, optimized container flow focuses on reducing unnecessary repositioning and minimizing lead time. Moreover, real-time tracking and monitoring is essential for maintaining visibility and control over container locations. Using IoT sensors like GPS and RFID, we are able to continuously monitor container status and locations, which informs our AI-driven adjustments. Finally, dynamic route adjustments allows us to adapt to real-time data on demand and traffic. By using AI to adjust routes based on current conditions, we can ensure timely deliveries and improve distribution efficiency. This flexibility keeps our operations cost-effective while supporting prompt and reliable service. Together, these AI-driven solutions enhance our ability to respond to logistics challenges effectively, minimizing costs and environmental impact across our network. As mentioned before, our solutions covers some of the key problems related to transportations, which is currently being faced by Africa. Furthermore, these solutions also align with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals and contributes positively to some of those goals. You can see directly on this slide that our solution has an impact on 7 out of 17 goals, which are SDG number 3, 4, 8, 10, 12, 13, and also 16. First and foremost, our solution, which is recycling containers and converting it into foldable, provides a positive impact that mainly contributes to three different main aspects. The first one, by recycling 1 ton of steel, we can save about 1.65 tons of iron ore, which is a non-renewable resource that is essential to the production of steel. Secondly, it can reduce the energy consumption by 350 kg of coal equivalent from the original use of 490 to 140 kg of coal equivalent. Lastly, it also reduces the carbon dioxide emissions by 66.67% compared to producing a new one. That being said, assuming that we want to recycle a normal size container, which is 20 feet in size and contains around 2.5 tons of steel, we can approximately save 875 kg of coal equivalent, 4 tons of iron ore, and also reduce the emissions of carbon dioxide by around 67%. Moreover, recently the United Nations reports that fossil fuels are responsible for over 90% of carbon dioxide emissions, making them the leading cause of global climate change. So, which of the goals are impacted in this case? Environmentally, our solution supports SDGs number 3, especially 3.9, which substantially reduces the number of deaths and illnesses from hazardous chemicals, in this case is carbon dioxide. Also, our solution positively impacts the SDGs number 12, especially 12.5, which is reducing waste through recycling, and also SDGs number 13, specifically 13.1 and 13b, which contributes to reduce transport emission and fuel consumptions. In a brief, through sustainable recycling and emission reductions, our solution advances the global well-being and environmental preservation.
The solution not only tackles environmental issues but has a significant social and economic impact. Africa faces significant challenges, including high unemployment rate, poverty, and limited access to education, which restricts economic growth and skill development. There are also many people living in extreme poverty, highlighting the urgent for economic opportunities and also access to education. Therefore, the solution does align with some key sustainable developments. As we look at the various social challenges that Africa faces, our solution specifically targets 4 SDG. First, SDG 16, that focuses on promoting peace, justice, and strong institutions, which is essential for social and political stability. By implementing container recycling and foldable unit manufacturing, we can offer sustainable model for growth, building strong institutional support and mitigating conflict over resources. And second, SDG 8, which promotes decent work and economic growth. It is at the heart of our approach. Our solution aims to create jobs in manufacturing, logistics, and create skill-based role, which not only reduces unemployment, but also foster economic growth. And third, SDG 4, which is equality, the quality of education, which the solution allows to train and empower communities, providing long-term skills that contribute to employability, which this ensures that disadvantaged and marginalized groups receive equal opportunities, which directly addressing the SDG 10 by reducing inequality and promoting economic equity. With this outcome, we envision a stable, empowered community that benefits economically and socially. And finally, we'll discuss how we measure the effectiveness of this solution. Our primary metric is job creation. According to the US Environmental Protection Agency, every 1,000 tons of recycled materials generates approximately 1.17 jobs. And based on this data, recycling 10,000 tons of materials annually could create around 11.7 jobs. In addition to creating stable employment, this approach addresses the environmental concerns and contributes to the local economy by providing connectivity benefits within Morocco and beyond. We expect that by increasing job opportunities, our solution will help to reduce youth unemployment rate in Africa, especially in regions with economic instability. And our solution not only creates direct employment, but also helps strengthening the economic stability by paving the way for sustainable growth. This initiative, starting in Morocco, can serve as a model for sustainable practices across Africa.
When a container reaches the end of its operational lifespan, there are several options to extend its usability and prevent them from becoming waste. These include upcycling the containers into functional spaces or to recycle them into foldable containers. Among these options, we believe recycling standard containers into foldable containers is the best solution. As shown in the diagram, the production cost of a recycled foldable container is $2,900. While this is higher than repairing or upcycling a standard container, it is much more economical than creating a completely new foldable container, which costs $7,000. While the initial investment in recycling foldable containers is higher when compared to repairing or upcycling it, we are convinced the long-term savings will make it worthwhile. In fact, foldable containers can save up to 75% of land space when collapsed. This compact form reduces the footprint of each container, leading to substantial space and cost efficiencies at ports and depots, allowing companies to minimize logistics expenses over time. This characteristic translates into greater operational efficiency, especially for industries requiring frequent and flexible shipping options. Building on the financial benefits, the reduced size of foldable containers translates into annual storage savings of approximately $500 per container. When applied to a fleet of 10,000 containers, this results in $5 million in storage savings annually. In addition, foldable containers can cut repositioning expenses by around $1,000 annually per container. With a fleet of 10,000 containers annually, companies can save up to $10 million each year, given that repositioning costs range from $500 to $1,500 per trip. This is highly valuable for managing fleets along trade routes which experience imbalanced traffic, where containers often travel empty in one direction. Furthermore, by choosing to recycle 10,000 containers instead of manufacturing new foldable containers, companies can save $28 million annually. This total consists of $20.5 million in production cost savings, $5 million in repositioning costs, and $2.5 million in reduced storage expenses. Ultimately, by opting to recycle end-of-life containers, companies can reduce the adverse environmental impact and generate revenue simultaneously. This is because, on average, each recycled container lowers carbon dioxide emissions by approximately 1.4 tons. This reduction in carbon emissions not only supports sustainability goals, but also provides a financial advantage, as each ton of CO2 reduction can be converted into a carbon credit valued at around $30. Therefore, recycling 10,000 containers will generate around $420,000 in carbon credit, providing another layer of financial incentive to recycle. This approach not only lowers the operational cost of production, repositioning, and storage, but also generates revenue from carbon credits. Together, we believe these benefits underscore the strategic and sustainable advantages of adopting recycled foldable containers in a modern supply chain. That is all from us. Thank you very much.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that very interesting presentation. I'm going to go right into the question and answer period. We'll start with Richard. Do you have questions for the team?
Yeah, very interesting and comprehensive presentation. Thank you very much. Yeah, a couple of questions. The main problem seems to be that there's an imbalance of inbound and outbound containers. Exactly how does your solution address that problem? Are you suggesting that rather than repositioning the empties, that they should just be recycled, that they should be essentially destroyed, and then new containers should be created? Or I'm not quite sure I understand how you address the inbound-outbound imbalance issue.
Okay, so first of all, thank you for the question. We're not actually planning to destroy and banish the containers from the earth, but the problem right now occurring in the African continent is that when containers arrive in Africa, they take so much space in African ports, and since they cannot be folded or they just need to be there, and since there is no demand for that particular container which has been unloaded at the African ports, they just need to store it somewhere in the African ports. And since this is very wasting much space, we propose a solution to make them into foldable ones so that when they store it in the African ports, one standard container can be equivalent to around 5 or 6 foldable containers, which means that if we're applying this to thousands or even millions of containers in the continent, we can save so much space. And since in the presentation, I've mentioned that it is found that a foldable container can save up to 75% of land space when collapsed. We believe that by recycling these containers and converting them into foldable ones provides a very sustainable and also effective solution as well. To add on top of that, we know right now that another occurring problem is that repositioning these standard containers is very expensive as it is taking a lot of space in the ships as well. And continuing on the point where we can save so much space by folding the containers into like 6 foldable containers, just only taking the space of one single standard container. We can also save a lot of space when transporting them to somewhere else when we are repositioning it.
Okay, um, the foldable containers would be, the main saving is that the foldable container takes up less space, but
Yes.
there still will be a lot of empty but folded containers at the destination port, waiting for some use in the future. Is that right?
Yeah, that's partially correct, but we also plan to mitigate the issue of the empty containers docking at ports by implementing the one belt, one road trade route and using AI to forecast the demand so that once these containers arrive in Africa, we can predict or do a forecast where are we going to put these foldable containers next for the next specific period of time so that we don't just lay it somewhere and hoping for like a miracle to arrive for someone to use it for I don't know how long. It is basically our main idea for the solution.
So the folded containers would be shipped to some other point along the route where there might be a need for that container.
Yes, true.
Yeah.
Correct.
So looking at the cost here, one of the things that has I think stopped the industry from doing this in the past is the cost of manufacturing the foldable containers, and you also mentioned tracking, and that's something I think the industry has been interested in for many years. But again, it's a question of cost and ROI. Have you given any thought to that, as opposed to the status quo? Because containers these days are built to last for about 10 years.
Well, obviously we have, first of all, thank you again for your question. We obviously have given thought to this status quo where, as you said, that containers cannot last much longer anymore. And we believe that by using our solution, we can minimize the need for the companies to reproduce completely new standard containers, which obviously going to cost a lot as well and going to be very wasteful in port spaces across the world, especially in African continent. So that right now we propose to these companies, rather than them making new standard containers, we can just try to help them by taking their end-of-lifespan containers in the port and then just help them to recycle it and convert it to foldable ones, so that on one hand, they don't need to produce a new standard container, and on the other hand, they can reuse these end-of-life standard containers again for a couple of years ahead, therefore minimizing the cost in the long run.
Uh-huh. Okay. Is there additional equipment that would be needed with these foldable containers to knock them down and then build them back up again? To collapse them and then bring them back up again when they're needed?
Oh, well, yeah, it is very possible to assume that in order for this plan to succeed, we obviously need to invest in some machineries and equipments and also warehouses to do the manufacturing part. But since we already mentioned that we already identified a potential company to be our partner, which is the Intercontinental Containers in Morocco, we already assume that since they are already specializing in reusing end-of-life containers, they obviously had the machineries and knowledge to implement this plan. And for the special components, it's obviously very different to constructing a new standard container, since we need the joints or the special type of steels to make them collapse and uncollapse over time and to make sure it's very durable.
Yeah, I was thinking more of the equipment that would be needed if you ship a folded container to some other location where it's needed. Then what equipment would be needed at that location to reconstruct the container into a usable container? In other words, if you're going to, let's say, reposition them all along the OBOR, would there need to be specialized equipment at each of those locations where they might go to put them back together again from the folded state?
Well, as of right now, based on our research and as of our knowledge at this moment, we believe that some companies already tried to implement these foldable containers, and every major port already has the machine to unfold and fold the containers back and forth. So we don't think this is going to be a major issue for our initial plan, as we're implementing this plan on one of the biggest ports in the world. So we assume that they already have the enough facilities and infrastructure to implement, to at least take the pilot stage of this plan. So obviously there is going to be an equipment needed to unfold and fold the containers when we're going to use it. But based on our knowledge at this moment, they're already possessing the equipments for that.
Okay, Changdam, back over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Richard. I have a question about your solution to use the One Belt, One Road routes. Currently, we basically have the exact same issue as we have through our ocean freight, is that there's a lot more exports from Asia coming into Africa than going out back along the One Belt, One Road roads. So how does focusing on the OBOR help this problem?
Okay, so thank you for the question. As we are aware that there is so much more incoming containers into Africa rather than the outcomings of the containers. And as of right now, there is only 2 stop points for the One Belt, One Road route in Africa, which is through Kenya and Djibouti. And since Morocco is on the north and west side of the African continent, therefore we plan to utilize AI and demand forecasting to determine and identify the best route to transport these foldable containers into these 2 stops, either between Kenya or Djibouti. And let's say that we have successfully transported these foldable containers into one of these 2 stops, and let's say that these containers are demanded in Rotterdam or in Moscow, we can just implement the One Belt, One Road trade route into further optimizing and minimizing the transportation costs compared to the standard transportation costs. That's where we plan to also contribute to the sustainability goals by utilizing the One Belt, One Road trade route.
But in actual practice, what you're finding is the empty containers are needed back in China, not in Russia or in Rotterdam, where they have plenty of containers already. Like in Port of Rotterdam, there's plenty of containers there for use. So I'm just wondering, when you're focused on the OBOR route, how is that an advantage versus just putting it back on the ports instead of transporting all the way back through the European route? So I'm trying to understand why you focused on this as a solution.
Well, essentially, our main focus of the solution is to fold the containers at first, because our first purpose of this plan is to save as much storage space as we can, since the most pressing issue in the African continent is there is no space anymore to just store the standard containers in the ports, right? And since we can further upgrade, further enhance this plan, we also plan to integrate the One Belt, One Road trade route, since so now that we can reduce the storage space required in the ports, why not we can just also reduce the transportation costs of transporting them, for example, from Morocco to China, or just China to Jakarta or Kuala Lumpur. And we're aware that obviously in these big countries, there are also a lot of containers that has already been docked at the ports. And that's why we start from Morocco first, and then we plan to gradually implement this plan to expanding globally, so that in the very long-term run, we plan to propose the solution to all of the world, so that this storage space problem does not occur as pressing as it is right now.
Okay, I just maybe just one final remark is I think on your second on the background, your second slide, you named the 6 key challenges. Your solution, can you tell me which one is your solution addressing? Of the 6 key challenges you've addressed, which one are you addressing here?
Well, in the big idea, we believe that we can address all 6 challenges that we have mentioned in here. For example, for the economic impact, since we plan to collaborate with the Intercontinental Containers Company, and we already mentioned that it's going to create jobs, right? And since we can create jobs to this proposal, we can, in the long run, we can improve the economy, as there will be more demands for laborers, for the skilled workforce, and etc. And here we already take the economic impact and environmental benefits, since we also created a lot of new storage space for the containers to be docked in the African ports. And as for the trade imbalance, one of the occurring problems right now is that companies don't want to use the containers from African ports, since it is very expensive to transport them to the place of demand from Africa. And since right now we can transport, for example, 5 foldable containers in the place of just 1 standard container, we can obviously cut so many costs, and therefore the companies can charge lower costs to the customers who need containers across the globe. And this is obviously going to minimize the trade imbalance in the long run. And for the next slides, we also have take the challenges that we believe we can tackle already in the long run.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that presentation and your answers to all our questions. Then best of luck. The results will be announced on December 20th. And thank you, Richard, for your being involved.
Thank you.
Okay, goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.